I think one of my favorite spiritual disciplines is the spiritual discipline of examine. And examine is an ancient discipline. It has a lot to do with reflection. And if you think about it, we don't do a lot of reflecting in our life. I don't know. Think about the last important thing that happened to you. I don't know what that would be. But did you spend any time after that event actually reflecting on what happened? If you're like me, a lot of times I don't reflect, and I end up going event to event to event, and after one thing is over, maybe after a big project is over, or after a big conversation is over, or after I accomplish something, I tend to just move on to the next thing in life without taking any time to really think about what I actually did, and especially where was God in what I just did. And so reflection is really not at all part of what we normally do, and so you have to discipline yourself to reflect on a very intentional basis. And so one way to do that is through the discipline of examine. And so what you do with examine is you actually think back through sometimes it's one day or sometimes it's a couple days, and you actually examine your life and you reflect on, number one, where was the presence of God in my life? And then number two, at what points in my day or my life was I resistant to that presence? So one really practical way to do that is it's a meditation exercise. And what you do is use some of the principles that some of the other people have talked about this weekend to kind of quiet yourself and come to a place where you're not distracted and where you there's just not a lot of thoughts in your mind that are clouding your focus on God. And after you get to that point, you go through this exercise. And what you do is you imagine that you're sitting on a couch, maybe just like the couch I'm sitting on, and you imagine that Jesus is actually sitting next to you, and the two of you are watching TV together. And as you watch the screen in front of you, what plays out on the screen is the last day of your life. And so you actually start to relive episodes with Jesus sitting next to you of what you've done the previous day. And so you go through everything. You wake up in the morning and you reflect on where was God when I woke up, or you might go to the next episode. Maybe you fought with your mom and you go to your drive to school, and then you sit through your classes and you go to the lunchroom and you actually replay your whole day in your mind. And here's the important part. What you do as you're replaying your day is you ask yourself the question, if Jesus was really sitting next to me, at what points in my day would he hit the pause button? And at what points would he stop and say, hey, let's talk about what we just saw? And even more importantly, what to imagine and what to think about is, what would Jesus actually say about what's going on in my day? And so when you do this on a regular basis, what starts to happen is you start to really recognize where God is in your day, and you start to also recognize where you're resistant to God. Because again, those are the two important points of examine. Number one, where was I attentive to God's Spirit today, and what opportunities did I respond to, and where did I see God? And then number two, where was I resistant to that? What times in my day did I have an opportunity but I didn't respond to it? Or what times in my day did I do something that was really, really selfish? So you really want to recognize where God was present and then where you were really resistant to his presence in your life. And then what happens on a consistent basis when you practice the prayer of examine a lot, then you will start to realize where God is before things happen. Because you know at the end of the day you're going to have to go through this discipline, and so it actually changes the way that you live. So that's the discipline of examine.